Hello everyone. It's been a while since my last video, but I'm hoping that this will be the start of a more regular upload schedule, but who knows. I am about to graduate though, so that will mean much more free time. Anyway, today I wanted to talk about the absolutely staggering amount of anime that have come out for this spring 2021 season of anime. It really is ludicrous, something like 150 shows, continuations, OVAs, and movies if you put them all together, but I'm gonna stick to the list of anime that are brand new, that I've actually watched to form an opinion, and that are not highly obvious yaoi and yuri bait or sports shows, and that's just personal. So that narrows it down to like 13 or 14 shows. Please stay tuned to the end of the video where I will be giving my top recommendation for this season. You do not want to miss this. So to start it off strong, we have 86. This show, like many others in this list, caught me completely off guard. Apparently this show is a long-awaited adaptation of a light novel series I'd never personally heard of. The show follows an empathetic major in the army of a dystopian society of all white-haired, blue-eyed humans and their war of attrition with an as-yet unknown enemy. On paper, the drones they use to fight the enemy are unmanned, but there are definitely seemingly human pilots inside. And the Major is assigned to a new unit with a pilot known only as the Reaper, who has been said to drive all handlers insane. The show is gorgeously animated by A1 Pictures, and even the CG battles so far are directed in such a way that the 3D animation isn't jarring. So, for my money, I'd say this show is a must-watch. Next we got Don't Toy With Me, Miss Nagatoro. I have been waiting for this show to get an anime for a long time, and while initially watching I was skeptical, the talented voice acting and semi-unique art style really sold me on the adaptation. Senpai, as he is called, is a nobody through and through. He keeps to himself, curses loud and annoying people, and prefers to study or tend to his art club. Unfortunately for him, Senpai falls into the clutches of a brash first-year gyaru at his school named Nagatoro. She relentlessly torments Senpai as his reactions are deemed cute, or gross, or endearing by the sadistic Nagatoro. This show may be uncomfortable for some, as it is pretty unrelenting with the bullying, and Senpai is a certifiable wuss, but for me, as a fan of the slow burn Seidodere romance in the manga, I'm really freaking pumped. After that we've got Higehiro. After being rejected, I shaved and took in a high school runaway. Yes, this is the season of absurdly wordy titles, and this is very obviously one of them. Higehiro is a deceptive anime. It's an adaptation of a manga by the same name, another one of my personal favorites, and it looks from the outside like a pretty messed up show since it involves a middle-aged dude taking in a high schooler. However, the show is honestly pretty pure. Maybe not so much in the animation, but in the themes that I promise. Anyway. The runaway girl Sayu is taken in by a business grunt and taught her own value as a person. She initially makes sexual advances on him as she assumes that is the only way to pay for her being allowed to stay, but the guy, Yoshida, slowly makes it apparent to her that she is worth more than that. This show is one I'm going to keep my eyes on, and I hope it does the manga justice. Next we're going to look at I've been killing slimes for 300 years and maxed out my level. Another very long title, but I'll keep this one brief. I love the manga yet again, it's got a long title again, and the animation yet again is gorgeous. This show is a comfy-ish isekai about a businesswoman who dies from overwork and is reincarnated as an immortal witch to live a comfortable life. Over the course of her first lazy 300 years, she kills slimes to make some money on the side, and in doing so accidentally hits max level. Her comfy life is quickly overturned as word gets out and hijinks ensue. Premium stuff. Really, give it a watch. Alright, I'm going to try to rapid fire these now to keep the video briefer. Odd Taxi. A brilliantly animated masterpiece so far, this show I initially called Zootopia the anime, but dismissed that just as quickly as this show stands well on its own without any silly comparisons. The infamous walrus taxi driver in the city finds himself entangled in several people's lives as a network of social discourse, crime, and unspoken desires wraps him up in its ugly web. The driver's own shady past also sparks intrigue, and this show has plenty of it. Please do not sleep on this show. I'm trying to keep it vague to entice y'all to watch it. To Your Eternity. This show has an interesting concept about a sentient orb that is sent to Earth by a curious god. It starts as a rock on the Earth, but after a wolf dies on top of it, the orb transforms from a rock to the dead wolf. After wandering further, it finds a boy who clearly owned the dead wolf, and the lad mistakes the orb wolf for the real one. In the first episode alone, the show got me near tears with its storytelling, and I can't wait to watch the orb's further journeys on Earth as it learns what it means to be alive. The Saint's magic power is omnipotent. This show is beautiful. The most expression I've seen in a long time in terms of facial animation and attention to body language. Anyway, this is another isekai with a seemingly OP protagonist, but honestly, in my opinion, it doesn't really matter. It's comfy so far, lots of slice of life aspects as the main heroine cavorts around her new world learning magic and potion making and building up her reverse harem. I'm not doing it justice with this brief description, but you should give it a watch for sure. Super Cub. I'm really not sure how I feel about this one yet. It only has one episode as of me writing the script out, and it's a little clunky in its animation, specifically its use of 3D animation in some parts. The animation style, however, is freaking sweet, almost pencil-like on the characters, but an incredible amount of detail in the environment. The show also uses color uniquely in that it is washed out at times and saturated at others in order to better convey the story and emotion behind it. Essentially, the show follows an orphan high school girl in her humdrum life in northern Japan. She rides her bike to school, eats the same meal every morning, and generally just kind of exists. In the spur of the moment, she buys a cursed motorbike, a Honda Super Cub, for 10,000 yen, and her life changes forever. This show has potential, but the slow pacing and janky 3D animation could definitely turn some people off. I will be watching it though. Okay. Full Dive. This ultimate next-gen full dive RPG is even shittier than real life. Christ on a bicycle, I am never saying that full thing out again. This show is okay. It's one of those antithesis to SAO type shows that deals with full dive VR, only this show is more about an embittered boy with a tragic past in sports and his desire to escape via video games. He meets a strange girl when he tries to buy a new VR game at a secondhand shop, and she gives him an old VR game that is more intense and realistic than any other. The show only really grabbed my attention at the end when the sort of hook, twist, whatever you want to call it happened, and honestly, between the shoddy animation and overbearing fan service, I'm not sure if this show will really take off, at least for me. Combatants will be dispatched. I want to love this show. I do. Its source material is by the same genius who wrote Konosuba. I want to love it, but just so far I don't. I'm not looking for another Konosuba, but the writing, world building, and humor just feel much more off-putting and shoddy comparatively. I realize comparing is not necessarily good, but in this case the show is just not doing it for me yet. I'm gonna continue giving it a shot. I'm also going to try to rewatch the first 2 episodes with less of a critical eye, but so far the story of a cosmic dumbass warrior and a little AI girl being catapulted through space just isn't doing it for me. I'm hoping the recently introduced supporting cast will help out, but I'm keeping the plot summary out of this so y'all can discover it for yourselves. Dragon Goes House Hunting. Yeah, straight up, I'm just not a fan. The animation is boring, the concept is okay but is executed poorly, the voice acting is subpar, and the plot lost its fervor in the very first episode. It follows a pussified red dragon who gets kicked out of his house for being a useless guard of the eggs, and then he decides that obviously the reason he sucks is because he doesn't have a house, so he sets off to find/buy a new one. Of course. If the dragon protagonist had any redeeming qualities, this show might be okay, but he's so unlovably terrible at being alive that it's just really hard to watch. He is somehow more of a wuss than Senpai. How do you do that? Shadow's House. This show is so intriguing, seriously. It has such a grim and foreboding premise, and yet the main character is so endearing and cute you almost forget how everything seemingly going on around it is. To not ruin it, I'll give a simple synopsis. In a world that hasn't been fleshed out yet, there is a family of nobles called the Shadows. As the name suggests, they are completely blacked out characters with no discernible features or expressions. They exude soot wherever they touch or whenever they are experiencing negative emotions. More creepy than this are the living dolls they create. By all appearances, they are human twins of the Shadows, each of them created to look like what the Shadow would be if they had an actual face, but the dolls serve them as maids/butlers. It's a disturbing interaction between them, but oddly charming and genuine at the same time. I look forward to the dark underbelly of this show slowly exposing itself. Please check this one out. Last but certainly not least, we're coming to the top recommendation for the season. Vivi, Fluorite Eye's Song. I had no idea this show was coming. In fact, I almost missed it entirely. The cover art for it on Funimation was so unassuming that if I hadn't seen that it had 300 plus 5-star ratings after the first episode alone, I wouldn't have even tried it. And boy would I have missed out. From the outside, it almost seems like it's going to be some sort of idol anime from the name and the art, but what I got is so much more. This show is not an idol anime at all, and honestly, that's all I will say on the matter. I might not even put in a lot of footage from the show, and try to sell it without a synopsis. This show falls into the sci-fi category. It is beautifully animated by Wit Studio, and it is an original story written by Wit Studio and Tape Nagatsuki, who, if you don't know, is the genius behind the ReZero light novels. If you're not sold yet, I'll try this. This show had the best hook in the first 3 minutes that I've ever seen. The directing is masterful, the plot twists are entirely out of left field, and I really cannot praise this show enough. Please do not pass this one up. This is one to tune into every single week until it is done. Anyway, hopefully this is informative and short enough to be digestible. There are plenty of shows I missed that are probably good, some sports ones, and the yaoi/yuri bait shows might be good too. There are also a ton of second, third, fourth, whatever the hell season anime that you definitely don't want to miss, like Megalobox, My Hero Academia, Zombieland Saga, and much more. Lots to watch for sure. Thank y'all so much for watching, and see y'all soon.